Welcome back to Spring Into Math 5. This is Mr. Stein here again, and we're kind of wrapping up our lessons with our last conversions, metric conversions. Okay, so we're talking metric conversions today. So let's start out with the chart to help us with metric conversions overall. So if you remember the saying, King Henry died unusually drinking chocolate milk. I know it's a mouthful, but you'll be able to replicate this chart pretty well. So let's take a look. So here we have King Henry died unusually drinking chocolate milk. Now, each of these words tips us off to a prefix that tells us something about the metric system. So we have king, and that stands for kilo, and that's telling us that 1 kilo is equal to 1,000 units. Then we have Henry, which is hecto, and that's 1 hecto is equal to 100 units. Then we have died, which is deca, and that's 1 deca is equal to 10 units. Then we have unusually, and that's our unit. That's our base unit. All of those are equal to 1, and our base units are going to be meters, liters, and grams. Okay, so when we have a meter, liter, or gram, it's always going to be 1. Then we have on the other side, so remember we talked about, before we talked about place value. So this is like place value. Think of that unusually, that meter, that liter, that gram, that unit as in the ones place. Anything that's King Henry or died, they're on the left side. Those are 10, 100, 1,000. Those are your tens, hundreds, and thousands place. On the other side, we're having, think of it like a decimal. We're going to have drinking stands for deci, and that's 10 deci is equal to 1 unit. So that's really like tenths. Then we have centa, and that's 100 centimeters, or excuse me, centa is equal to 1 unit. So that's your hundredths. And then we have milla, and that's essentially, that's the milk part of our acronym. We have milla, and that tells us that we have 1,000 milla is equal to 1 base unit, and that's our thousandths place. So it's kind of like that place value where you have, on different sides of the decimal. Okay, so the metric system is based on place values I just indicated. Each value is related to the next largest or next smallest by a power of 10. Because remember, as you go across the place value chart, you're always essentially multiplying by 10. So let's look at the prefixes to help us out, and I think that'll kind of make it a little clearer. So again, there's lots of charts like this online, maybe even in your math books. Just make sure that you take your time to really look at it. So when we're looking at the prefixes, and this is really the part that's really powerful, that really can stick with you, is that kilo, its meaning is 1,000. So anytime you have a kilometer or a kilogram or a kiloliter, you're having 1,000 liters, 1,000 grams, 1,000 meters, because the meaning of the prefix kilo is 1,000. Then we have hecto, the meaning is 100. We have deca, the meaning is 10. So if you have a decameter, a decagram, a decaliter, it's 10 of those, 10 meters, 10 grams, 10 liters. Then we have our base unit. We have meters, grams, and liters. Remember, that's just one of them, because it's our base unit. That's like our ones place. All right, then we have deca, which is in the tenths place. So we have a decimeter, a decigram, a deciliter. It's like 0.1, or it's, a tenth of it. So then we have centa, which means hundredths. So you think about like a centimeter, that's something that you've heard many times before. Well, think about it. There are 100 centimeters in 1 meter, because it's in the hundredth place. It's a hundredth of a meter. And then we have milla, which is the thousandth. And that's why you have, if you look at millimeters, there's 1,000 millimeters in a meter, because it's a thousandth of a meter. Okay, so let's look at 2 quick examples just to get a really easy concept of how we can kind of move around in terms of where our decimal point is to figure this out. So if we're looking at 6,000 milliliters is equal to how many liters? Okay, so you have our little chart here. And so we're going from milliliters to liters. So we're going from something smaller to bigger. So think of it as we're going to divide. Now, you can divide if you choose. And so milla was 1,000th. So you can essentially divide by 1,000 if that makes it easier. But when you're looking from milliliters to liters, it's getting bigger, so you can move the decimal point to the left. And so essentially, if I were to kind of like think about it like this, you can see that 6,000 milliliters is equal to 6 liters, because it's essentially like I just moved my decimal point 1, 2, 3 spots, because I got rid of those 3 zeros because I'm getting rid of 1,000, and it just makes it 6 liters. So it's kind of like an easy little cheat. Now, of course, it's not. It's actually just a great trick. But think of it like anytime you're moving over, if you're moving over a tenth, you're going to move 1 zero away. If you're moving 100, if you're moving 100th of it, you're going to move 2 zeros, 1,000, 3 zeros. Okay, let's take a look at this now. So now we're looking at 5 kilometers is equal to how many meters? Okay, so again, we're looking at kilometers to meters, and so we're getting smaller, so we're going to move our decimal point to the right. So again, there are 1,000 meters in a kilometer. So if it's easier for you just to say, you know what, 5 times 1,000 is 5,000, I get it. But another way to think about it is just moving that decimal point over. So if I write it, if we were thinking 5, if we were to move our decimal point over, because really the decimal point's right there. So if I were to move it over, you know, basically 1,000, I'm moving over 3 zeros. So it's just 1, 2, 3. And if I were to now fill in all those zeros, that's where I get that 5,000 meters. Okay, so I know it's an unusual approach. So if it's more helpful just to look at the conversions and multiply it by 10, 100, or 1,000, or divide it, I totally get it. Do it that way. If you kind of get it and it seems like it makes sense to move those decimal points over, try that. I think you'll like it. See you next time.